And welcome back to Realtor Reacts, ladies and gentlemen. On this episode, we're going to be visiting with Chief, once again, Village's Chief. And I want you to take a look at the expression on Chief's face here in the thumbnail, which he does a fantastic job with his thumbnails. That is probably the most irritated I've ever seen Chief look. And if you look at the title of the video, you can clearly understand why. For those of you who aren't in the know, ARC is an acronym for Architectural Review Committee. And if you've ever dealt with ARC, you're going to very quickly understand why there's this look of irritation. Sometimes this experience can be very acidine. Sometimes this experience can be just fine and not a problem. I will tell you that in my dealings with ARC, and I've never directly dealt with ARC, I've always dealt with ARC in conjunction with something that one of my customers / residents is trying to do with their property structurally or landscaping wise. So I've always kind of been off to the side, but yet we're still trying to render aid in this endeavor. So it can be frustrating to deal with ARC, but ARC serves a very vital role in the community. So if you ever ask ARC if they ever make mistakes, no, they never make mistakes. They make mistakes. It happens because human beings are involved. Anytime a human being is involved, mistakes are going to happen. So without further ado, let's jump in. I have not watched this video, as is the point of Realtor Reacts. I don't pre-screen the vast majority of the videos. So I have no idea what Chief is going to say here. Hopefully we're gonna have a good time, and we're gonna be able to derive some value out of the experience. Let's jump right in.
Hey everybody, how you doing? If you've been watching my channel, you know I'm fairly new to the Villages. I moved here in September 2022, so I've been doing a lot of projects inside and out, and I just recently started doing a lot of landscaping outside, and I'm getting ready to do some painting, like my shutters and doors and things like that. Big palm tree that I have to remove, and in order to do a lot of these things, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be in violation of the ARC, or the Architectural Review Committee here in the Villages. If you're not familiar with the ARC, let me read right from their website what they're all about. The mission of the Architectural Review Committee is to maintain the high quality and consistency of the aesthetics and design of the residences and home sites found throughout the Villages. Whether it's a pool addition, landscaping, painted driveway, porch enclosure, coloring of walks, inner driveways, arbors, pergolas, trellises, removal of trees that are greater than 4 inches in diameter, it is necessary to submit a modification alteration form for approval, which is basically this right here. Chapter 190 Florida statutes authorize community development districts to adopt these rules necessary to enforce the guidelines. So, we have to comply with this stuff, or you can get in trouble, fined, whatever. The architectural review ensures every home modification is constructed of appropriate materials and built to complement the natural man-made surroundings. The architectural review process is purely administrative in nature, which tells me that they don't run around policing it. I think it's more of a neighbor reporting system. So if someone sees your house being dilapidated, or you painted it some crazy color that doesn't quite go with the community, will probably be put on their radar. But I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think that's how it works. Issuing.
He's not wrong. That kind of is a broader statement for most deed enforcement, right? It's kind of a honor system, and it's kind of a per complaint basis. There was a time many years ago where Community Watch, which I believe is organized under the CDD, was tasked with kind of filing concerns to the appropriate departments in the CDD about various things, and that included things that they believed were violations of the covenant and restrictions as it pertained to landscaping in particular, or structural modifications to the home or the property that they didn't feel fell within compliance. ARC serves a vital role in the Villages, and whether we necessarily like it or not, they are there essentially for quality control, right, and assurance. And it is one of those things that, from a sales perspective, right, the way that we tend to talk about ARC is it is a kind of a bureaucracy. um, and anytime you have to deal with that, it's going to be annoying. They have forms, they have a process. Like I said before, can they make mistakes? Do they color outside the lines every once in a while? Is it an uphill battle to try and get them to acknowledge that maybe the ruling wasn't correct? Yeah, it absolutely is. Um, but they are there to protect the value of the community. And whether you realize it or not, if you're considering a move to the villages or if you've made a move to the villages, ARC really is what allows us to have that uniformity. I'm not sure if that's even a word. I think I just made that word up, uniformity. But that uniform nature, and it allows to maintain that consistency, and thus that value remains steady. Okay. When you're making an investment in a home, ARC gives you that assurance that your neighbors are not going to devalue your property with their personal touches. Okay. Everybody responds to ARC a little differently. There's a couple different personality types out there. Chief and myself, we're probably more in the line of these are the rules, we follow the rules. Okay. We electively purchased here. The rules were set before we got here. We understood that and we're going to comply. There's another side of this equation where you'll have a personality type that is more or less like, well, it's my house, I paid for it, it's my money, it's my retirement, I'll do whatever I want. And if you wanna poo-poo me on that, then I'll just fight you into the ends of the earth. Both exist. do do as you please, I guess, in that regard. Um, I've never really heard of a situation where, unless ARC was completely out of line, that ever really reared any kind of positive result. Um, I think I'm dealing with something. We're dealing with something in my particular neighborhood right now around a color scheme that was not approved. Um, and it's ARC is one of those things that it's kind of an unsung hero. It's a pain in a lot of cases, but that's not the fault of the people that work in the department. That's just the nature of the being, but it's a necessary evil. Is the point I'm trying to make. Let's jump back in.
Issuance of permits or variances is through the appropriate city council. Blah, 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 blah. So basically, the ARC makes sure that exterior of their homes, the landscaping and everything is kept a certain way to keep the look here in the villages that we all love. Part of the reasons that we moved here, right, was for the beauty of it. So we all have to do our part. And this is just their way of keeping an eye on that kind of thing. So if you're going to do anything major to the outside of your home, if you're going to do any projects to the exterior of your home, I would definitely look into the ARC, and I'm going to show you the website here in a minute. I'm going to show you where to download the application form to submit for your project. Now, what's kind of interesting is I have a 25-year-old palm tree in the back that is dying. I've had 2 tree experts look at it. It's definitely got to come down, but I wanted to make sure I went through the ARC because it is bigger than 4 inches in diameter. So I thought the right thing to do was to fill out the form, submit it. I took pictures. Took an overhead shot from Google of my house, of the property. I got all the paperwork I needed, proof of ownership. I took photos of the tree. I explained everything I wanted to do, attached it all to this form. I dropped it off, and then I went.
Now, with as much explanation as he's giving on the front end, what do you think the chances are that this went as planned? Let's find out.
Waited a couple weeks. I called to follow up to see if it got approved. Come to find out, a palm tree of any size, you don't need the ARC permission. This was according to the phone call that I had, so make sure you check yourself. I'm just telling you my experience. I'm not telling you to run around chopping down palm trees. Anything like that, you should always call these guys or look online and see what the rules are. The conversation that I had, he told me that.
So, in a previous episode, we had talked about the frustration that can arise around the the variance in enforcement, right? Where you as an individual are reading the text and you understand the text to mean a certain thing, and then you try and comply with the text as written, right? And this more or less is what Chief ran into here. And then you do all the things you're supposed to do. He submits it, doesn't hear back, makes a phone call, and then, oh, you don't have to do that, but it says it in the text, right? So what the text says and how it actually works are not the same thing, which is always great, right? I can laugh about it, right? And I'm sure if you've had this experience, you're not laughing, and I apologize. I realize that this happens quite a bit, but that's the reality, right? I think in the previous example I gave, it was around pet ownership, and I think it was Rusty, and Rusty was like, two dogs under, a certain weight limit. I think it was 30 pounds, and unless I see it in writing, I don't believe it. Well, it's probably never going to be in writing, and I think the takeaway here is that if you have a question, instead of doing a thorough investigation of the deed restrictions, you might want to just call, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a slightly different answer or a very different understanding of how it actually works versus what the text reflects. And that's unfortunate, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is. The really unfortunate part is that if they ever decided to change their position and want to try and hold you accountable for something, and they're going to use the text as the basis for that, that conversation that you had where the understanding was different probably isn't going to come into play. And that's really stinky. I just got off the phone probably last week with a colleague who is dealing with an ARC issue right now. And she's a realtor in my office. And she's been dealing with this issue for multiple years. And when you've been dealing with that issue for multiple years, which you typically find is you get a steady stream of ever increase letters that will sound ever more increasingly threatening, right? The reality of it is that CDD's powers are somewhat limited to writing letters and warnings and maybe issuing a fine in the more extreme cases. So, but at the end of the day, the vast majority of people want to be in compliance. The problem is we just don't understand how to be in compliance because the rules as written aren't necessarily the rules as applied or enforced. All right, let's jump back in.
Palm trees are considered grass, and therefore, doesn't matter the size, you don't need the ARC's permission to remove them. That blew me.
I'm sorry, did he just say that palm trees are considered grass? Did I hear that right? I'm going to go back because I think I was coughing too. Let me go back and just make sure I heard that right.
Online and see what the rules are. The conversation I had, he told me that palm trees are considered grass, and therefore, doesn't matter the size, you don't need the ARC's permission to remove them. That blew me away. Now, any other type of tree that's over 4 inches.
Have you ever found a blade of grass you could literally climb up? Me neither. Welcome to Architectural Review. Oh, it's funny and it hurts at the same time. All right, let's get back into the video. Good Lord.
In diameter, yes, you want to go through the ARC before you rip it out or cut it down. Another thing you'll notice, and I'll show you on the website and on this form, is that if you chop down a regular tree, you have to remove the stump. I know it's boring stuff, but that's a lesson that I learned. I went through this whole process and didn't have to for that tree. But that's okay because I learned a lot about the ARC in the process. So another thing that was interesting, I'm getting ready to paint my shutters and my front door. Just they haven't been painted in decades. It looks horrible, and I just want to update it. Maybe use a different color, like a black or something a little bit more modern. I was also told by the ARC that they don't govern the doors. They do have to approve the color that I choose to paint the shutters, but not the door. They have no jurisdiction over the front door, which I found very interesting. So, but that's what they told me on the phone, that as far as the shutters or anything else in the exterior painting wise, yes, you go through the ARC, but when it comes to the door, I don't have to. I don't know if that means you can paint it any color you want, but that's kind of how I interpreted the conversation that I had. But again, if you're going to do some painting or anything on your outside of your home, I would definitely look into the ARC. So let's go to check out the website, walk you through that, and then I'll show you where the ARC is actually located, and then we'll go from there. Let's check it out. So this is districtgov.org, which is the Villages Community Development District's website. If you come under committees, you go to Architectural Review Committee. This number right here, 352-751-3912, is like their main office. You can call them for any questions. I've called them twice. They've been very helpful. If you come under quick links here and then forms and publications, you'll see the Architectural Review ARC application. This is the form you're going to want to download and fill it out and then take it into the office. Here's a little tip for you. This is Old Mill Run Road in Sumter Landing. When you come to drop off your form at the ARC, you're going to walk along this street looking for that address and you won't see the address. So it jumps. But anyway, you got the Starbucks right here. And if you look in this little alleyway right here, that's where you want to go in. And then on the right side over here, once you walk through this alley, is a door to the right that looks kind of governmental. And you go through that door and up the stairs, and that's where the ARC is.
I'm pausing for a moment for a joke. The last episode we did here on Realtor Reacts was called Dark Secrets, right? ARC is one of those little dark secrets, right? So dark is ARC. They hid it in a walkway in between buildings, in a dark alleyway there, through a door, up the stairs, off to the side, and out of sight. I don't mean to pick on ARC. I don't. Like I said at the beginning of the video, they perform a very vital function in maintaining the quality of the product so that the values remain in place for our residents and for our owners. And that's critical. It's been a critical component for the success of the community as a whole. And when you have something as large as the Villages, you need a functionary like that. So I don't want to come off as just beating up on ARC. I'm not beating up on ARC. If anything, I'll say this. The Villages has been around for a long time now, a very long time. Even if you start counting in the early 90s when the Villages kind of really became what it is today, or evolved from that position, that's been a lot of changes in deed restrictions. That's been a lot of development of different districts. That's been a lot of rethinking and imagining, what are the practical deed restrictions and what are the more experimental type stuff. And over that time, the staff of ARC has changed. And every time you get a new iteration of staffing, the understanding will change, the training will change. The current tone and mood and position of ARC will change over time. And that will be reflective in those phone conversations that you typically will have with ARC. So if there's any major takeaway from this video, it would probably be this in my advice for you going forward. If you feel like you're going to do something with your property that ARC is going to have something to say about, probably want to just give them a call, okay? And run it by them, see what they say, and then follow the instructions that they provide you, so that you're not wasting your time and, you're good to go. Um, as a practice, I generally try and get the name of the person that I speak with, so that if I call there again, if I run into some type of issue where the my understanding was different than what the outcome was, I can reference that individual and I can say, well, I spoke to this person and this is what they had told me and this is why we did this way. Um, and then maybe, and it has happened, I will get a different um, understanding, if I'm dealing with somebody who's maybe been at ARC a little longer. Okay. The point there is that, these are people. They're people just like you and I. And I don't care what facet of business you're in or what facet of even in education. You've got excellent teachers who are very, very, very good at what they do. And then you have the guy who shows up and generally wants, it's just getting a paycheck. And I don't mean to, I'm not calling out teachers here, but I'm just saying there are different degrees, okay, of exceptionalism when it comes to really any facet of life. Let's hop back in.
So again, this is at Sumter Landing, Old Mill Run Road. When you type in the address, you're not going to see the entranceway to the ARC, so you'll want to look for this alleyway, go in there, and then up the stairs. All right, let's jump back to the form on districtgov.org. And there's some interesting notes in here that I came across. There's this little section here, ARC approval stipulations. You'll want to pay attention to this. Water management stuff, if you're affecting drainage, things like that. And you'll be liable for any blockage and that kind of thing. Let's see. Make sure you comply with government regulations. In the event of a tree removal approval, the owner shall remove the tree stump and restore the area to its natural state. So if you're removing an oak tree or something like that that's been approved by the ARC, you can't just cut it off and leave the stump there. You have to have that stump taken out and the surface brought back to normal. So I found that to be interesting. So something you'll think about. Anyway, that's where you get the form. Again, it's at districtgov.org. You go to Architectural Review Committee. Under Quick Links, go to Forms and Publications. Click on ARC application. It'll open a PDF typically. And then you download this form, fill it out, read it carefully. Then you take it to the office, which I just showed a minute ago. If you can't read it, it is 984 Old Mill Run, The Villages, Florida 32162. There's also an interesting thing under here, public meetings notices and results. If you come in here, this shows their meetings and agendas, which is kind of interesting. So let's say we click on this one, and then there's the agenda. And this tells you all the properties that they're going to be discussing or reviewing that day. And then if you click on the agenda packet, you can actually see all the different submissions for that period. There's descriptions. It's crazy. They show everybody's submission of what they're doing, which I found pretty interesting. Here, let's look at the ARC application process real quick. So basically, owner submits ARC application. If it's approved, property owner can proceed with the alteration. No other further action is required. If they deny your application, you can resubmit a modified plan. And here's the appeal process and all that. So again, that's on the website under forms and publications on the very end. All right, so I hope some of that was helpful. I know it's a little dry subject, but it does impact all of.
So CDD.org is a fantastic resource for getting into the nuanced informations about the community. And if you are a deep researcher type of personality, you're gonna waste days going through all of that. And it is it is a wealth of information, to say the least. And I visit that website regularly myself to try and keep up the speed on certain aspects. And I highly encourage that you get real familiar with it. I do believe, and I'm actually going to pause the video here for a moment and check on this, but I do believe that there is an online submission capability for the architectural review. So give me just a second. I'm going to go check that out and I'll be right back. Nope, turns out I was wrong. We had a customer a while back, Miss Mendoza, who we had spent an extensive amount of time working with ARC on a roofing issue, along with some landscaping. And I thought that when we made the submission of the ARC form, we were able to do it via some type of online function, email possibly. But I just checked with my wife, and she said no. It was mailed, and of course, as Chief is suggesting, you could just take it directly into the office. That's odd, right? You would think in today's age you'd be able to email it somewhere. There'd be a centralized email. And maybe there still is. Maybe there is, and we're just not detecting it. Regardless, let's jump back in here and wrap up the video. It's only about a minute and a half left. This has been fun. Let's see what else Chief has to say.
Us that live here, you definitely want to go through the ARC. You know, if you're going to sell your home, make sure it's in order. You don't want the new people to get stuck with some crazy fine because you didn't do things right. If you're buying a new home, you might want to get some sort of written agreement that everything that.
So let's touch on that for a moment. The statement he just made was, if you're going to sell your home, have it reviewed for compliance. Essentially, it's not exactly what he said, but that's the point he's making there. Recently, a debate has fired up as to the responsibility of real estate professionals in having a home for sale within compliance prior to it being purchased. And the basis of that argument is that it is incumbent upon the real estate professional to ensure that the home is in compliance with the deed restrictions. I have feelings about this. To a degree, I can certainly see why the general public would want that to be the case. Um, the real hang up there is the practicality of it. It's one of those things that if it was if there existed a mechanism by which I, as a real estate professional here in the villages, could contact the CDD or ARC and have them send out some type of compliance inspector, even at a cost, right? Then I would be happy to do that. But as far as I know, no such service is available. And as I think we've outlined pretty clearly at this point, relying on the text solely to guide our understanding of what is and is not in compliance probably isn't going to work out very well either. The reality of it is, we don't really know if something's out of compliance until a complaint is issued, and then ARC comes out and reviews that complaint. There's no preempting that, right? I would love it if that was the case. I would love it if somebody from CDD or even ARC came out and there was a position to be filled, whereby which they would review the property in its current state, give it a gold star, and we could put that on the marketing, right? ARC reviewed. But as of right now, as far as I know, that doesn't exist. As far as who is responsible for having that home be in compliance with the deed restrictions, there's not really a debate here. That's the homeowner. Okay. There's 13 districts in the villages as it stands today. Each one has slightly different variances in their deed restrictions. There's no reasonable way that real estate professionals are going to be able to review these properties and be experts in all of the deed restrictions across all of the districts and put that gold star on there. And even if somebody were to attempt to do it, and I'm probably the personality type who would attempt to, it wouldn't amount to a hill of beans at the end of the day, because ARC doesn't care what I think at all. Let's jump back in here.
That they've done to the exterior of their home is within the ARC guidelines. But of course, I'm not a realtor, a lawyer, or anything like that, so check with your realtor on that. If you buy a home that has exterior stuff that was done that was not approved by the ARC, you could be the one that ends up paying for that, having to make it back to how it used to be, possibly fined. I don't know how they're going to do that, but you do hear about those things. So make sure when you buy a home, everything is up to the standards as best you can. Maybe call the ARC and look into it. I hope this video is helpful to you guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribing, sharing, all that kind of stuff that everybody's supposed to do on YouTube. Much appreciated. I'll catch you on the next video. All right. Take care of each other out there. See you guys.
I always enjoy Chief. I don't know why he keeps punching that camera, but maybe that camera talked to him in a way he didn't care for. Chief is absolutely right, and like I said, I wish, being the type of person that I am, I don't want to be outside the lines. I want to be in compliance. All my residents want to be in compliance. We want to play by the rules. We don't understand the rules, right? We don't understand where the lines are in a lot of cases. Some of this stuff is common sense. Other things are a little bit more nuanced. Palm trees apparently are grass. It would be wonderful if there was a process or a person, or a checklist, anything on a per district level, that we could fill out or call and have somebody do, right? We do home inspection. We have home inspectors, right? We have termite inspectors, right? We have inspections that are typically part of a real estate transaction. So why would decompliance not be one of those type of inspections? Whether I'm ordering it or the homeowner is ordering it, it would just be, here again, another one of those seals of approval that it is safe to move forward with a purchase. I don't believe it exists as it is of today. I would love to see it come into existence. Maybe we here on the internet. Oh, excuse me, that snuck up on me. Maybe we here on the internet can help move that idea forward. This has been Realtor Reacts. This has been Village's Chief. Go check out his channel. He's amazing. I'm going to do everything I can to try and prop him up. Not that, again, doesn't need my help, but encourage folks to go visit his channel, because he might move to Arizona, and I don't want him to move to Arizona, because I have nothing to say about Arizona. So that would be detrimental, and I think the community would suffer a great loss. So thanks again for joining us here on Realtor Reacts for this episode. I hope you got some value out of this experience. I hope I didn't meander around too much with my dialogue. But come back and join us again next week. We're going to be doing an episode of Roundtable here, the July edition, pretty soon. I've got a hero to talk about in that episode. So be good to yourself. Be good to others where you can and when you can. And we look forward to seeing you around town. Have a great one. Bye-bye.